It's Arkle on the stand side for Ireland and Millhouse for England on the far side. And this is it with Arkle just taking the lead as they come to the last bend. It's going to be Arkle if he jumps it. Arkle coming to the last now. And Arkle on legs clear of Millhouse. He's over and clear. Millhouse is trying to challenge him again, but it's Arkle on the stand side. Millhouse over on the far side, coming up towards the line. And Arkle is holding him. Arkle going away now from Millhouse. This is the champion. This is the best we've seen for a long time. Arkle is the...
In the world of racing, Peter O'Sullivan's commentary on that final run-in in the 1964 Cheltenham Gold Cup is as seminal and epoch-making as Kenneth Wolstenholme's poignant "They think it's all over, it is now" was to be at Wembley just a couple of years later. It was the beginning of a legend. While many would play a role in his career, the first man Arkle saw on the night he was born was Dan Daly. While Arkle's reactions weren't recorded, Dan still has vivid memories of that April night in 1957.
Well, Arkle was an outstanding horse and he proved himself on the racecourse. He had won so many high-class races, you know, everybody was talking about him. And they all agreed quite clearly that he was outstanding and by far the best horse of his time. The night he was born, the nightman called me to say the mare was on the move and looked like foaling. I went up and the foal was born at a very short time, everything, no difficulty whatsoever, and stood up and sucked the mare after about an hour. On the next day I looked at the foal as I had to assess all the foals born. He just was an average foal, I thought at that time. Wonderful back end to him and good legs and that, but I thought his shortish head and neck, you know, short, you wouldn't, I thought at that time if you sit up on the foal, you know, on a horse when he grows up, that you wouldn't have an awful lot in front. Well, in fact, that was quite true about Arkle. There wasn't quite as much in front of you as you would like, but he was a very, very wonderful horse. In my opinion, his outstanding performance was when he won the Gold Cup, and Millhouse he beat Millhouse. Now Millhouse was an absolute fantastic horse at that time, but no way, you know, would he stand up to Arkle. Arkle come and beat him very easily. Well, it's doubtful that we will see his like again. He was really outstanding. But however, people are breeding all the time and hoping for something very special. It's very rarely you come upon them, and you certainly may never again come upon one so wonderful as Arkle.
The first time I saw Arkle was when he disembarked from the CIE horse box, when he came back from Ballymacoll Stud with his mother. And my mother at that time was an invalid, so we led him down from the top yard down to the bottom yard so she could see out the window, and she was very pleased to see him. And then he was brought back and put in his stable, and we minded him then till he was about 3 years old. And when he came to be 3, then I started to break him. And the first day I put the tack on him, he tied himself in a knot. He bucked and kicked and did all sorts of things. He really did. And the second day, he was like a gentleman. Once he knew what he had to do, he didn't mind. He'd walk and do all he meant to do. As a 3-year-old, I had to prepare him for the August sales. I led him round, and he was sold and bought by Anne, Duchess of Westminster. And a very lucky horse he was to have such a very good owner, who was most thoughtful to her horses, and to have such an excellent trainer. A very, very lucky horse. And perhaps he might never have turned out as well as he did, only for those 2 people. So he was sold that day anyhow. Mother wasn't able to go into the sales, but I came home and told her the news anyway, and she was pleased. And we got 1,150 guineas.
Anne, Duchess of Westminster's investment and subsequent interest in Arkle was to become a labour of love. Her constant affection and concern for the horse's welfare was an influential feature in his success.
I called Arkle after I've got this lovely estate in Scotland, and one of the finest mountains, one of the highest mountains there is called Arkle, and I called the horse after this mountain. Lovely. Arkle. I thought it was a nice, simple name, and it was a most lovely, lovely mountain. And I hoped and proved to be right that he'd be a lovely, lovely horse. I bought Arkle at the sales in Dublin, and Tom was there. And I asked him there and then if he'd train this horse for me.
I sent her over and I said, go over there and look at him. And if you like him, buy him. And don't blame me if he doesn't get 3 miles for you.
So I had him home for a little while and then sent him to Tom. Tom had trained the dam, so he quite liked the bottom line, but he wasn't so keen about the rest of it. Anyway, he very kindly took him for me. We were tremendous friends, and Tom's wife, Betty, was one of my very best friends. And, you know, we really could talk about it and discuss it at great length. And I loved going there to the yard and seeing Arkle and seeing him working. And they were so kind and always made me very welcome. I rode him a lot. I used to get him up at my father's farm in County Kildare, and used to get him, he always spent the summer there, and I'd get him up and ride him for a month, perhaps before he went back to Tom. And I could ride him any time in the summer. I loved riding him. He really did look after me. I think I watched all his races. I suppose I might have been an odd one, that perhaps I was ill or something, but for no other reason. I wouldn't miss one. I wouldn't have missed one for anything, unless it was completely unavoidable. It was such happy days, there always were. Lovely things happening. And it was also rather a worry at times when one's very, very dear friend jumping those great fences. However, he didn't seem to mind. He enjoyed jumping them. I mean, it'd been marvellous if there was another horse as good, but so far there hasn't been. When perhaps not changing the subject, but when he appeared at the Horse of the Year show in London, and they asked me what tune I'd like played while he was parading, and I said, could they play the tune "There'll Never Be Another You"? And I think I was right.
And perhaps there never will be. But the Duchess also knew the tremendous amount of work and preparation that was needed if the great horse was to realise his potential. Another constant companion throughout Arkle's career was Paddy Woods.
Actually, this reminds me of years ago when I used to come back out here every morning out of the saddle room there, come out with our saddle into number 7 here to ride out Arkle. I suppose if we knew what we knew now, we would have been scared of our life, but we passed. He was just another horse that time, but he was an exceptional horse. And when he come in off grass at the start, he wouldn't be the best ride in the world, but each day I would imagine, he just got better and better every day. And it came to the time then when you'd be riding him fast work, it'd be you there to have enough. You'd say, listen, I think we're gone far enough or fast enough, because he would certainly always have that extra little thing in the bag to pull out, pull out, pull out, pull out. Now every time you squeeze him, you just keep going faster, faster, faster. He was an exceptional horse. There's an awful lot of emphasis now on the interval training. Like an awful lot of the trainers now are talking about how they discovered it. Well, Mr. Draper discovered that 35 years ago. When I came to work here for Mr. Moore in Ferryhouse, I came to work here, and the first morning I was here, he was telling us about to go down to the bottom of the gallop and come back up about 4 furlongs, trot back down, 4 furlongs back up, trot down, back 4 furlongs up. And then he had discovered that 35 years ago, and now some people are thinking it's new. You know, he was a man, he was years before his time.
What about your training methods?
I have none.
Have you got a...
I got no education.
Have you got a rule do you stick to?
Well, maybe I have. I never galloped them. I never tried them.
Yes.
I guess at them. And none of my patrons bet, so you don't have to be galloping.
What about schooling them? Do you school them?
Oh, I schooled them plenty.
Over fences as young horses?
Yeah, well, smaller ones first.
And I always like to jump them over the small fences before they know how to gallop.
And Arkle just improved with all that all the time. But most of the other very, very good horses, we had marvellous horses there in the yard. Marvellous horses. And they all seemed to benefit from his, and he never got his training methods, and he never got flustered. He was always on his ease. The horses seemed to be on their ease with him. And he was just one fantastic man. And it was just the usual thing for anyone, as you'd say, that wouldn't understand. A lot of people used to keep horses out for hours and a half and 2 hours and do tremendous big long training. The most I think we were ever out, be a long morning, be a half an hour. At the time we didn't realise, I suppose, he's an exceptional heart. I think he had a very, very big heart, and obviously with Mr. Draper's training, it made him unbeatable at the time, and he was an exceptional horse. His record still stands at Sandown Park by a long way. No one ever got near it yet, and that just gives the people an idea how good a horse he was. The records to stand at that long with all the new methods of training that they think they have now, but we had that 35 years ago here, you know. And he was just an exceptional horse. I don't think you could say any more about him. Only he was unbeatable.
I shall never forget Arkle. The first time I really remember him was riding against him in the Broadway novice chase at Cheltenham, and three of us jumped the second last upsides. Pat Taaffe and Arkle, Jeff King on John's Viking. I rode Border Flight, and I finished third and thought I'd done everything right, and finished up getting the sack because I got beaten by Arkle.
But the man who would know more than most about what it was like to be among the also-rans to Arkle was the great Willie Robinson, jockey of Arkle's great rival, Millhouse.
Pat Taaffe wrote to me a letter when I had been in Saxon House for a month, inquiring about Millhouse, as he had a lot to do with him here in Ireland. And at the end of his letter, he said that in his opinion the horse would be the best of the century.
The 1963 Hennessy Gold Cup at Newbury heralded the beginning of one of the greatest rivalries in the history of sport. Arkle crossed the Irish Sea to take on the reigning Cheltenham Gold Cup winner Millhouse. It was less than 2 years since Arkle had first set foot in a racecourse, and after a modest enough beginning, he had blossomed into a potential star. His most significant win to date had come in the Broadway Chase at the Cheltenham Festival the previous March, and a career record of 11 wins from 15 starts suggested that he could mount a serious challenge to the great Millhouse.
When we met in Newbury for the Hennessy in 1963, there was tremendous interest in both horses, and so much word came from Ireland that Arkle was unbeatable and so on, and Millhouse was one of the best ever in England. So you can imagine the excitement there was at Newbury that day.
This is the third last fence, the last open ditch. It's Millhouse from Arkle. Millhouse and Arkle almost together there, but Arkle a bad mistake, and Arkle's almost blundered his way out of the race there as Millhouse comes to the second last fence. The clear lead.
Unfortunately for Arkle, he slipped on landing over the third last, and I won terribly easy and very impressive. And we all thought, including Mr. Walwyn, that he was the best horse he'd ever trained.
Happy Spring is going to jump in second. Arkle jumps in third, and coming up towards the line, it's Millhouse, the great champion, retaining his reputation. Willie Robinson on Millhouse with 50 yards to run to the line, and hats off from the crowd as they cheer a great champion as he runs up to the line. Millhouse and Arkle coming to try and get second place off Happy Spring at the line. Millhouse is the winner. Happy Spring is second, and Arkle is third. This is the third last fence, the last open ditch. It's Millhouse from Arkle. Millhouse and Arkle almost together there, but Arkle a bad mistake, and Arkle's almost blundered his way out of the race there as Millhouse.
The big question for Arkle fans after the 63 Hennessy was just what impact that mistake at the third last had. Would Arkle have beaten the mighty Millhouse without that error?
I don't know. I think he put his foot in the hole, but he slipped up at the third last fence, and I think he would have beaten Millhouse that day.
2 or 3 months before Cheltenham, there was tremendous interest and excitement over the Gold Cup, because it would be the next time that both horses were going to take each other on, and the excitement was doubled. And I can well remember that, we were all very tense at least a month before Cheltenham, and even the atmosphere in Saxon House was something that was unforgettable.
Well, I always thought after that Hennessy that if ever they meet again, Arkle is the best horse. Well, my great pal Willie Robinson thought otherwise. He just said, no, you won't beat me this year.
It was to become one of the most anticipated races in national hunt history. It may have been a Gold Cup, there may have been other runners, but this was looked upon as a match between Arkle and Millhouse, a showdown between Ireland and England.
And it's the big two now. It's Millhouse, the leader from Arkle. Arkle making ground on the far side at the third last fence. Millhouse is over the leader from Arkle second. They've got 2 fences left to jump now in the Gold Cup, with Millhouse the leader from Arkle, and a long way back is Parcel, then King's Nephew. This is the second last fence, and they're still both full of running, still going great guns, both of them. It's Millhouse on the inside, jumps it only just ahead of Arkle. Now they're rounding the home turn, and this is it. And Willie Robinson's got his whip out, and Pat Taaffe is shaking up Arkle, and this is the race now to the last fence. It's Arkle on the stand side for Ireland and Millhouse for England on the far side. And this is it, with Arkle just taking the lead as they come to the last fence. It's going to be Arkle if he jumps it. Arkle coming to the last now, and Arkle a length nearer Millhouse. He's over and clear. Millhouse is trying to challenge him again, but it's Arkle on the stand side. Millhouse over on the far side, coming up towards the line, and Arkle is holding him. Arkle going away now from Millhouse. This is the champion. This is the best we've seen for a long time. Arkle is the winner of the Gold Cup. Millhouse is second, and I've never heard such cheers from the stands at Cheltenham as Arkle proves himself the champion chaser in the British Isles. Trying to challenge him again, but it's Arkle on the stand side.
That great matchup in 1964 will live long in the memory. It became one of the great racing moments, if not one of the great sporting moments of the 20th century. Arkle had proved that his brilliance was beyond question.
Towards the line, and Arkle is holding him. Arkle going away now from Millhouse. This is the champion. This is the best we've seen for a long time. Arkle is the winner of the Gold Cup. Millhouse is second, and I've never heard such cheers from the stands at Cheltenham as Arkle.
Arkle's fans were delirious. They'd found a champion worthy of the name, and they didn't half let their feelings show. This time, it was the Millhouse camp who had to come to terms with defeat.
After the Gold Cup in '64, what we were the immediate reaction was depression. We were absolutely dumbfounded that we more or less got beaten without a proper fight. But Fulk Wolman was absolutely amazed. He couldn't understand how Arkle could improve so much. But as we know, he did.
But amazingly, for such a great athlete and a ferocious competitor, away from the racing arena, Arkle was the most gentle of playmates. In a scene unthinkable by today's standards, visiting children were welcome to see Pat Taaffe's vantage point on board the Great Mount. The prestigious spring show at the RDS in Dublin showcases species of all shapes and sizes, with some deporting themselves much better than others. The crowds showed their appreciation for the Great One's achievements, and the Great One in turn, with ears characteristically pricked, left no one in doubt as to who was the real star of the show.
But he was actually human. You know, he understood everything, and actually the first time he went to Ascot, the only time he was there, when he walked out on the track, he Stood. He wasn't actually stopping. He just stood. And General Dawn, when he just asked me what's wrong with him, I said, but he's never been here before. He just wants to have a look around.
Well, they say, Pat, that before a race, if you looked at him in the stable, that he was just a listless horse. That when he came into the parade ring, that he pricked up the ears and looked around and said, "Here I am."
Well, in the stable, he saw us every day. He'd seen enough of us, more or less, and he just didn't bother. But like when he went out into the parade ring, so people come to look at me. I'm the horse. This is me. Right.
I think it was phenomenal in as much that in about 64 they had to have two handicaps revolving around Arkle and Flying Bolt. I mean, Flying Bolt, who I also rode, literally had to have 12 stone to 9/7, 12 stone to 10 stone, whether Arkle and Flying Bolt were in or whether they were out. And so that says an awful lot about Arkle.
The debate continues today regarding the extreme measures taken by the handicappers to curb this wonder horse from running away with every race.
Arkle's brilliance caused the rules of racing to be rearranged in Ireland. The racing authorities had to do something to cope with Arkle, and they turned to the rules of racing and the national hunt rules. Now, what happened?
Well, thankfully then I wasn't around at the time as handicapper, but the problems Arkle created was that in his brilliance, that were he to run in a race, the weights were so compressed that virtually nothing else would get into the race. So the authorities then had to take a view, if he didn't run, they would have to have an alternative handicap, or in the time it was called an A or a B handicap, and that would then take place if Arkle didn't run. And such was his dominance at that time that he could be giving up to £35 to high class, maybe Gold Cup horses, Grand National horses, and still beat them. Nowadays, if a horse is over 12 stone, it's quite unusual. But in that, or at that time, it was the norm. And I think more, rather than being cruel, I think it was testament to his greatness that he could carry these weights and so often.
Are you glad you weren't there at that time, Naul, in a way, or would it have been a lovely problem to wrestle with?
I would have loved to have been at that time. I mean, Ted Kelly, an ex-senior handicapper who was in Draper's at the time, tells me stories about Arkle, Flying Bolt, all those. I mean, I think it was a golden age for Irish chasing. I would have liked to have been there.
Arkle's first outing under the new handicap system was the Irish Grand National in 1964.
Racing out of the final fence. Arkle and Height of Fashion together. And it's Arkle just the leader. And in the race home now it's Arkle. Arkle and Height of Fashion, very little between them. And Pat Taaffe pushing Arkle out. Height of Fashion trying to bear him down on him. But racing down now at 50 yards to go. It's Arkle. And coming down to the finishing post. It is Arkle. Yes, he's won. And there he goes. The undisputed champion. Arkle the winner. Height of Fashion is second. And Ferry Boat is the leader.
Arkle's Fairy House performance showed that he was far from a one-day wonder. He demonstrated his incredible courage and battling qualities to defy the handicapping regime. They had moved the goalposts, but they couldn't move the winning post.
Yes, he's won, and there he goes, the undisputed champion. Arkle the winner. Height of Fashion is second, and Ferry Boat is third.
It's Arkle the real champion. Arkle is out on his own. Lovely pictures.
Arkle, the leader from Millhouse, with Ferryboat closing a little on the two. Arkle from Millhouse in second place, Ferryboat third, and Ferryboat going well. Ferryboat, in fact, going up to challenge Millhouse now and to move into second place as they round the home turn with 4 to jump in the 1964 Hennessy. And it's the two Irish horses now, with Pat Taaffe looking anxiously over his right shoulder to see Buck Jones on Ferryboat coming to challenge him as they come to the fourth last fence now. Arkle, the leader from Ferryboat, with Millhouse looking beaten now. 4 to jump, and it's Arkle the leader from Ferryboat. Millhouse jumps in third, and these three are a long way clear of the remainder. They have them completely outclassed. The Rippers jumped it in fourth place. This is the final open ditch now. Arkle from Ferryboat. Arkle on the far side. The leader from Ferryboat jumps in second. Millhouse towering, jumps in third, and he tired and very nearly came down there, Millhouse. This is the second last fence now, and as they come to it, Arkle is the leader from Ferryboat, Millhouse third, Arkle over, and he wasn't 2 foot perfect at that one, but he's well clear of Ferryboat. Third was Millhouse, towering again and nearly went at that one. This is the last fence, and here's the great one, Arkle, well clear of Ferryboat, the lightly weighted Ferryboat, and Arkle's only got to jump it. He has pricked, he's over and clear. Ferryboat jumps it second. Millhouse is coming up tight into third place, and the Rip is coming to challenge him now for third place. And as they come up to the line, it's Pat Taaffe on Arkle going away from Ferryboat, with the Rip coming storming into third place now. And as they come up to the line, it's Arkle, the undisputed champion, well clear of Ferryboat in second place. The Rip is going to be third, and at the line the Rip is third, Millhouse is fourth.
Arkle's run in the 64 Hennessy confirmed his win under a big burden at Fairyhouse had been no fluke. He had now taken on and beaten the best of the British handicappers, and furthermore, he had gone 2-1 up in the head-to-head battle with his great rival Millhouse. Arkle had returned to Newbury and laid the ghost of the previous year to rest. He was striding relentlessly forward, and his rivals, they seemed to face an insurmountable task. His ability to continually dish out a beating while conceding lumps of weight was nothing short of phenomenal.
And having warmed up with a win in the Leopardstown Chase, the Arkle bandwagon rolled on to the 1965 Cheltenham Blue Ribbon.
And under starters orders. And they're off. Arkle and Millhouse together at the first. Millhouse on the far side by side. Caddyvale jumps at third and Stony Crossing fourth. Coming up to the second, stride for stride. Arkle on the near side, Millhouse on the far side, stride for stride over it, and Caddyvale had a long look at it. Arkle from Millhouse, Millhouse almost up with him again, and now racing for the home turn. And it's still Arkle, the leader from Millhouse. Millhouse under pressure now. Willie Robinson asking him for everything, and it doesn't look as though he's going to get Arkle off the bit as they round the home turn now, with Pat Taaffe looking over his right shoulder. Millhouse trying to make ground on his inner. Stony Crossing is in third place. Caddyvale is a fence behind him almost. And now Arkle opening up now like a sports car, like a real, as though he's just changed gear. He's opened up, he's changed down, and he's coming to the last fence full of running. He's just got to jump it to go away. And a brilliant jump, a superb jump at the last. Exhibition stuff. A fine effort by Millhouse, but he's absolutely unavailing against the champion. Here's the greatest going away to the line. Pat Taaffe riding him out. The horse really enjoying himself. He's given a great exhibition performance this afternoon. This is his second successive Gold Cup. And he's coming to the last fence full of running.
Arkle's 1965 Gold Cup win was almost ruthless in its brilliance. Millhouse trailed in his wake some 20 lengths back, and it now looked as though he was fighting a losing battle. The precision of Arkle's exhibition was matched only by the ease with which he accomplished it, and at level weights in championship events the opposition were just treading water. The Duchess led her hero back to yet another roaring reception from his adoring fans. Without fear of contradiction, no horse had ever looked nearer the complete, final, flawless racehorse than Arkle. Would succeeding generations ever produce a champion to match him?
Increasing his lead. He's up by a length, he's up by a length and a half, and it's Lescargo going away from French Tan. Spanish steps his third of the line. Lescargo.
I'll never forget getting down to the start in the Gloucester hurdle with Lescargo aged about 5, and Terry Biddlecombe and I said to Tommy Carberry, "What are you going to do?" He said, "Chase us, I'll make it." He said, "Don't chase us because we're going to be going too quick." And that's the last we saw of Tommy and Lescargo. He trotted up. Everybody forgets about Lescargo. He finished 5th in the champion hurdle the next year. He went on and won a Wheels final at Haydock, 2 Gold Cups, Grand National, and I still got the blinkers that he wore in the Grand National because they were mine. The Colonial Cup. He was very much a forgotten horse. In my opinion, he was one of the greats.
L'Escargot, Tommy Carberry now, as they come towards the second last fence in the Gold Cup. It's French Tan and L'Escargot going very strongly on the stand side, French Tan on the far side, and it was French Tan who just jumped in the better. L'Escargot in second, Spanish Steps coming there strongly in third place now, coming to the final fence, and it's French Tan and L'Escargot stride for stride. L'Escargot just in the lead as they come to it. L'Escargot on the near side, French Tan on the far side, French Tan jumps in better, but L'Escargot's getting up, and now as they race up towards the line, 150 yards to run, and it's L'Escargot going away now from French Tan as they come up towards the line. It's L'Escargot increasing his lead, he's up by a length and a half, and it's L'Escargot going away from French Tan. Spanish Steps is third of the line, L'Escargot's the winner, second is French Tan. It's an Irish one too.
And as regards Dawn Run, she won a Grand Prix de Paris at Auteuil. She won the Champion Hurdle. She won a Gold Cup. I personally think she was the best mare I've ever seen, and I've seen quite a lot since 1946.
Over on the far side, the mare Dawn Run, Wayward Lad the veteran on the near side, and Forgive and Forget still running very, very strongly indeed, last year's winner, as they approach the second last fence. Run and Skip, Dawn Run, Wayward Lad and Forgive and Forget coming there strongly on the stand side at the second last. Run and Skip, Dawn Run, Wayward Lad, Forgive and Forget still coming there strongly on the near side. Forgive and Forget on the near side now as they come to the final fence. Forgive and Forget is going to jump marginally in the lead from Wayward Lad. Forgive and Forget on the near side, Wayward Lad on the far side. It's Wayward Lad, the veteran, trying to break his Cheltenham Hoodoo, being pressed now by Dawn Run in the centre. Forgive and Forget on the near side as they race to the line, and the mare's beginning to get up, and as they come to the line, she's made it. Dawn Run has won it. Dawn Run has won it from Wayward Lad, and John Joe O'Neill punches the air as the mare has made tough history here at Cheltenham. She's become the first in history to win the Champion Hurdle and the Gold Cup. First, number 14, Dawn Run, owned by Mrs. Charmian Hill, trained by Paddy Mullins and ridden by John Joe O'Neill.
You then go around to Desi, who Desi didn't win round Cheltenham till he won a Gold Cup and then a Queen Mother, and he was wonderful.
Despite the best efforts of succeeding generations, Arkle's legend remains unsurpassed. He added the Whitbread Gold Cup to his impressive list of honours at Sandown in 1965.
And they're off. And as they come up to the first of the 24 fences, Persian Signal is the leader from Overcourt, and Arkle coming into this first fence now. And a great jump there by Arkle. He went into the fence third and he came out first. And now the second fence is the first open ditch, and Arkle, I can't believe that his jockey wants him to be there, but he is just in front of Persian Signal and Brasher over on the inside, Overcourt on this side, and another huge jump over the second open ditch by Arkle, and pulling very, very hard for his head there. Pat Taaffe holding Arkle in for all he's worth, but I should think longing for somebody to go on and make the running for him. He's a hard puller, this horse. We've always known that. Now they're coming to the third fence. This is slightly downhill and into the fence now, and a great jump. He stood well away from it. They're all over and going round the bottom turn there now. Arkle leads by 4 or 5 lengths. Now we have the first of the 3 fences come close together, and oh my goodness gracious me, that was no expert jump. He reached for that, and it looked quite dangerous for a moment, Arkle, but he met that one perfectly. Nothing wrong there. Leading from Brasher, and I think he's settled down nicely now. Looks to me as if he's racing much more steadily. And with 7 more fences to jump, the water jump and 6 plain fences, it's Arkle and Brasher together, followed by Rough Tweed, and those 3 have drawn away from the field a bit now as they go to the water for the last time. And Brasher landed just a fraction in front of Arkle there. And he's going very, very easily too, is Brasher, with Rough Tweed right on their heels into the next fence. Brasher a little close to that, he jumped it quite well. Arkle jumped up to him again though, and shows a fraction in front as they go to the last one on that far side. Now they've 3 more fences to jump and about 3/4 mile to go, and it's Arkle who's gone on again. Arkle who's gone on again now from Brasher, and those two have drawn right away from Willow King, who's taken 3rd place in front of Rough Tweed and Persian Signal. 3 fences to go, and Arkle has really turned on the speed again there. Just for a moment it looked as if Brasher was going pretty well with him on the far side, but Arkle has turned on the speed again and put just about a length and a half between them, but Brasher's by no means beaten. He's coming up there again on the outside. Arkle and Brasher coming into the 3rd last fence now. Arkle over and only just clear of Brasher. There's nothing between the two, but there's a lot of weight to give away, and Brasher jockey has a quick look over his shoulder to see where the others are. As they come into the 2nd last fence now, it's Arkle from Brasher with Willow King in 3rd place. Over the 2nd last, it's Arkle from Brasher. Willow King jumps 3rd, followed by Rough Tweed. Up the hill now, 1 fence to go, and Arkle has put about 3 lengths between himself and Brasher as they come to the last fence. Arkle coming into the last fence now, and a great jump over it, followed by Brasher. And this is a real champion we're seeing here now. He's galloping on strongly with 150 yards to go. It's Arkle going away from Brasher in 2nd place, Willow King 3rd, and Rough Tweed 4th, coming up the line, and it's Arkle the winner. Brasher 2nd. The first of the 3 fences come close together, and oh my
That error from Arkle almost smacked of complacency, but he was quickly back on an even keel, and he continued on his merry way at the head of affairs. By the time he got to the business end of the race, he had matters firmly under control. He saw off Scottish national winner Brasher, ridden by Jimmy Fitzgerald, in emphatic fashion. Arkle's class was just too much to handle, and even in receipt of £35, Brasher had no answer to his finishing kick. By the time the 1965 Gallagher Gold Cup came around, Arkle was conceding £16 to his great rival Malahow. This was the race where Arkle produced what many consider to be his greatest ever performance. David Nicholson was on board Malahow that afternoon.
I'll never forget the Gallagher Gold Cup in November of that year, and I rode Malahow, and Foot Warren said, jump off, make it. 2nd time down the backside, make every post a winning post. And I saw 7 long ones, and Malahow saw 7 long ones. I got a length at every fence, and I thought, well, if that hasn't stuffed Arkle, I wouldn't know what will. And we landed over the last one, halfway around the last turn towards the 3rd last, and Pat Taaffe came bumpity bump past me. And it drained out of me, and it drained out of Malahow, and that broke Malahow's heart. Arkle was a phenomenon.
3 weeks later, Arkle continued his amazing run in the 1965 Hennessy Gold Cup.
This is the 2nd last fence now. Arkle clear, jumps it impeccably as though this was the 1st fence he jumped during the race. Brasher jumps it 2nd, Wayward Queen jumps it 3rd just ahead of Freddie. Coming up towards the final fence now in the 1965 Hennessy Gold Cup, and it's Arkle well clear. As he ears pricks, he jumps it and goes striding away, getting a tremendous reception from the crowd here. Brasher jumps it 2nd, Wayward Queen jumps it 3rd, just ahead of Freddie, and as they race up towards the line, it's Arkle striding away well clear of Brasher in 2nd place. Then comes Freddie and Wayward Queen, and at the line, Arkle 12 stone 7 on his back.
That 1965 Hennessy win was yet another colossal effort from Arkle. Coming just 3 weeks after his awesome display in that Gallagher Gold Cup at Sandown Park, he carried 12 stone 7 as he recorded his 2nd Hennessy win and the 23rd of his career in all. As he came home unchallenged, he did appear to tire a little in the closing stages, but that was hardly surprising in light of his achievement. It was yet another memorable performance from the great champion.
Pat, what race in Ireland that Arkle won do you remember best?
Well, the Leopardstown Chase in which he beat Height of Fashion. That was actually Mr. Draper's preparatory race before the Gold Cup. And, well, he did need a race that day, all right. But Height of Fashion headed me after the last fence. Well, you'd want a horse like Arkle to do it, and game as he is, he just stuck his head out and he beat her neck.
Did you think halfway up the straight or near the winning post that the Great Heart was going to do it or the Little Mare was going to do it?
Well, I thought the Great Heart would do it, like I always believed in.
Arkle over the last, Height of Fashion is 2nd and Splash is 3rd. They've got just over a furlong to run and it's Arkle the leader. And it's Arkle out in front, and Pat Taaffe pushing him along a bit. Height of Fashion trying to get to him again. She's coming strongly on the outside, and Pat Taaffe is really at Arkle now. They've got less than a furlong to run, and Arkle is holding on, but Height of Fashion is coming after him. He's 50 yards to run. It's Arkle just going to hold on, or is he? Height of Fashion coming after him, and passing the post. It's Arkle by just there, by about a half a length or so. He's given the 3 stone, but what a struggle, and what an ovation.
Height of Fashion was no back number, but even getting 3 stone from Arkle, she couldn't quite get his measure. That great heart had prevailed yet again, and Tom Draper's star performer added the 1966 Leopardstown Chase to his wins in the same race in the previous 2 seasons. This was to be Arkle's last race in Ireland, where he was unbeaten in his 10 runs over fences, and it set him up perfectly for his hat-trick attempt in the Cheltenham Gold Cup.
That was to come just over 2 weeks later, when, in a heart-stopping moment, the headlines weren't the only thing he hit.
As he comes up to the next, Dorman second, Snego third, Sartorius and then Hunch. Another complete circuit. Oh, and he barely took off at that one. He just looked at it and ignored it, and how he got the other side. Well, you should have heard the gasp from the crowd here. It looked as though he wasn't going to jump at all. Arkle rounding the home turn, a great roar from the crowd now as they see him level up. Absolutely effortless he is at the moment. Surely he's not going to take any chances with this one as he did before. No, he jumps it like a champion, roars from the crowd as he goes away. Dorman's jumping at second, Snego's jumping at third, and there's Arkle striding up to the line, the runaway winner of his 3rd successive Gold Cup, being chased vainly but gamely into 2nd place by Dorman, with Snego just hanging on to be 3rd.
That mistake from Arkle on the first circuit really was extraordinary. We had seen something similar, of course, in the 65 Whitbread at Sandown, but the reverse angle shot shows how perilously close he was to dashing the dreams of a nation. Yet again, he showed his survival instincts, and by the time he had jumped the final fence in glorious isolation, the 10-to-1 on price at which Arkle was returned almost seemed like value. It remains the shortest SP of a Cheltenham Gold Cup winner.
But gamely into 2nd place by Dorman, with
Arkle had by now achieved a position of unquestioned dominance, but just what made him so special?
Arkle was always believed to have had an extraordinarily large heart. Many elite equine athletes are thought to have had very big hearts. Examples are Hyperion, who was one of the best sires of this century, and Phar Lap, the famous Australian horses who won about 18 races and later went to race in America. This led to the belief that having a large heart conveyed an athletic advantage. As a result, people started trying to predict athletic ability from assessments of heart size. This is a diagrammatic illustration of an equine heart. An electrical impulse which arrives at the top of the heart is relayed through to the middle of it, and then through a nerve system through the muscle of the heart. And it is the firing of these nervous impulses that results in the contraction of the heart. These nervous impulses are examined using an electrocardiograph in horses as they are in man. And the idea is that larger hearts require a longer duration of electrical stimulation to contract than smaller hearts do. And if we take, for example, more modern technology using ultrasound devices, it's possible to beam ultrasound into the heart and to measure wall thickness and to extrapolate from that into the total weight of the heart, and to relate that, if you like, to the total weight of the horse, so that you have a heart weight to body weight ratio. And those ultrasound studies have been carried out by Hester McAllister of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine in UCD. These studies illustrated that heart size is not sufficiently strong as a predictor of future performance to use as a selection criterion at sales or anywhere else. Yes, there is a relationship between a big heart and ability to perform well, but it's only one of the determinants of performance ability. And to take a yearling and to attempt to predict what will happen 2 years down the line, given the possibility of intercurrent disease or injury or temperament or lack of ability, is to stretch credibility too far. It's a little bit like the medieval belief that you could turn base metal into gold. In my life of working with horses, I've always thought that the really good ones are like masterpieces. They're like the most wonderful paintings that are created by Caravaggio or Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci. They come along rarely, and that's what makes them so very special. And if you're lucky, you might see one or two of them in a lifetime, and you're one of the privileged few who's witnessed a masterpiece.
Arkle's battle with the handicapper continued in the 1966 Hennessy Gold Cup.
With Arkle the leader from Kilsallaghan Wood. Arkle the leader. And he's opened up a gap there of about 2.5 lengths over Kilsallaghan Wood in second place. Then Stallbridge Colonist, then Master Mascus is still going well. Then Freddie and then What a Myth. And now levelling up for the home turn and the home stretch now, and Arkle the leader being pressed now by Kilsallaghan Wood, who's going very strongly. Johnny Hayne coming there to tackle Pat Taaffe, and it's Arkle the leader from Kilsallaghan Wood. There's 35 pounds in it between these two. Arkle is over from Kilsallaghan Wood over second. Stallbridge Colonist is over third. Pat Taaffe a look over his right shoulder there as he comes to the last open ditch. This is number 19 of the 21 fences, and it's Arkle the leader from Kilsallaghan Wood. Second, Stallbridge Colonist is third. Then comes What a Myth now in fourth place. Coming to the next now with Arkle the leader. Then Kilsallaghan Wood, then Stallbridge Colonist. What a Myth trying to get on terms with him. This is the next, and Arkle over from Stallbridge Colonist now moving into second place, and now they're coming up to the last fence now, and it's Arkle the leader, and a great crowd at the fence there waiting to part as he comes to jump it. Arkle 12 stone 7 the leader from Stallbridge Colonist. Arkle comes to it and he jumps it clear of Stallbridge Colonist second, but Stallbridge Colonist putting in a great challenge, and it's Stallbridge Colonist on the stand side, Arkle on the far side. Here's where the weight is going to tell, and it's Stallbridge Colonist going away from Arkle now as they battle up to the line. Arkle is going to be beaten. It's Stallbridge Colonist from Arkle, and What a Myth putting in a great finish, but Stallbridge Colonist is the winner at the line. Arkle is second, third is What a Myth, fourth is Kilsallaghan Wood, fifth is Master Mascus, and sixth is Freddie. And so the result of the 1966 Hennessy Gold Cup is first, number 6, Stallbridge Colonist, owned by Mr. R.J. Blindle, trained by Ken Cundall, ridden by Stan Mellor. Second, number 1, Arkle, owned by Anne Duchess of Westminster, trained in Ireland by Tom Draper, ridden by Pat Taaffe.
Many felt that this Hennessy defeat meant that the handicapper had finally got the better of Arkle. But to be fair, most of the credit must go to Stan Mellor, the rider of Stallbridge Colonist. He stalked Arkle like a cheetah stalking his prey, and when he pounced, even the great horse could not fend off his challenge. One of the finest horsemen of his generation, Mellor produced what is regarded as the best riding performance of his career, to win by half a length. Even though he was beaten, Arkle lost nothing in defeat. The magnitude of his performance is put into context when you consider he was trying to concede 35 pounds to a horse who was to be narrowly beaten in the next 2 Cheltenham Gold Cups.
Of course, the honours to the great horse we're looking at now. 35 pounds he was trying to concede on his first appearance of the season. A magnificent, noble effort, just beaten by the handicapper, and who could say that he looks distressed after that failure. Walking in fresh, and still jaunty and gay after that fine effort over 3 miles, 2 furlongs, 82 yards and 21 fences. Beaten half a length by a horse to whom he was trying to concede 35 pounds. The winner.
After that Hennessy defeat, Arkle bounced back with a 15 lengths win in the SGB Chase at Ascot. Next up was the King George at Kempton, which he had won effortlessly the previous year.
Let's turn now from his triumphs to a day that wasn't so happy. That day in Kempton Park, the last race that he ever ran.
Well, it was the King George. He'd won it the previous year, and as you know, there wasn't much opposition. But he had won at Ascot 10 days before, and he jumped the last 2 fences slightly to the left at Ascot. But that's not Arkle, he generally jumped very straight. At Kempton that day, the second fence, which is a regulation, he sprawled a little bit when he landed, and I thought, well, maybe he did it there. But he started to hang slightly from that on the whole way around in the race, but then at the eventful 7th last fence, as it's called now, really just galloped through it. Maybe it happened there. but he was hanging the whole time through the race, and actually at the second last fence, Woodland Venture came up to me and he fell. But then when I jumped the last, which was probably 10 lengths in front, but I knew he was being eased over to the stands all the time. And
but jumping the last, Pat, you seem to have the race won, even though he was injured.
I thought so, but then I thought, like, there's something wrong. He's not galloping straight, and, well, hope for the best. Dormant only came to me 100 yards in the post, and still he beats me a length and a half.
In other words, you were going backwards more than he was going forward.
Well, I was kind of backpedaling, I thought, from the last fence.
Arkle finished very lame, and on subsequent veterinary examination, he was found to have cracked the pedal bone in his off-fore hoof.
The injury that Arkle sustained in that great race at Kempton was to his pedal bone. And this is the pedal bone, which is the bone that's enclosed fully within the hoof of the horse. So if we look here, we can see the horny hoof, and the pedal bone inside here is the bone that he unfortunately fractured during that race. Now, we don't know how this injury occurred. It's usually caused by concussion on hard ground. So the pressure of the horse landing perhaps over a fence may have cracked the bone, and what we call the wing of the pedal bone was fractured right through to the joint. And this is what ultimately caused the end of his career, and possibly even the end of his life. This kind of injury can lead to arthritis within the joint inside the hoof, and probably was the ultimate cause of his demise. Nowadays it could still be a career-threatening injury for an athlete such as this, but an attempt would almost certainly have been made to repair such an injury, probably by means of a screw fixation, which we can see in the x-ray. However, in a heavy 1,000-pound horse racing at such speeds over large fences, it could still in fact spell the end of his career. We don't know what stage in the race this occurred, probably occurred landing over one of the fences, and the fact that he managed to finish the race was a tribute to him in itself, and the fact that in fact he almost managed to win the race with a severe fracture to his foot was a tribute to the great horse.
After 5 weeks in Kempton being looked after by vets, Arkle boarded the plane for home. He spent a period of convalescence at the Duchess's estate before returning to Tom Draper's yard in October 1967. Speculation ebbed and flowed regarding a possible comeback for the great horse.
Mrs. Draper, what's your latest reaction to your report on Arkle?
Well, we are sorry that he's not fit to put into training straight away now, but we knew there was this possibility, and we must just have patience. And in a couple of months, when they take another X-ray, perhaps he'll be ready then to do more. But he certainly won't race this season. Perhaps next season, we don't know.
Well, what do you think of the chances of a complete recovery?
Oh, 50-50.
But the comeback wasn't to be, as Arkle never really regained his old spark, and in 1968 he was formally retired. Arkle made numerous celebrity appearances, but the onset of arthritis was taking its toll. In May 1970, Pat Taaffe went to visit his old partner, and on seeing him in distress, realised that there was only one option. The Duchess travelled from England to see her pride and joy one last time, and on May the 31st, 1970, Arkle was put to sleep. Arkle's legacy lives on, and in recognition of his magnificent feats at Cheltenham, the racecourse erected a statue in his honour which stands proudly in the enclosure. His achievements remain the benchmark by which all others are measured, and as each generation of young aspirants bids to emulate his feats, they inevitably tread the path to Cheltenham. The Irish Independent Arkle Chase is the race where they put their credentials on the line.
As they race towards the final fence, it's Buckhouse being challenged by Boreen Prince, very promising on the stand side. Wide open race over on the far side, Buckhouse on the near side, very promising. Between horses, it's Boreen Prince. It's Buckhouse with the advantage now from Boreen Prince as they race into the closing stages. Boreen Prince and Buckhouse, there's nothing between them. Boreen Prince getting the upper hand as they race to the line. Boreen Prince is going to win the Arkle. At the line, Boreen Prince is the winner of the final fence now. And it's Remittance Man on the far side, Uncle Ernie under pressure on the near side. It's Remittance Man with the advantage. Remittance Man comes to it a length and a half in the lead. He jumps it brilliantly. It's Remittance Man on the far side. Uncle Ernie can give no more in second. Devil's Valley is third. Remittance Man is going to win the Waterford Castle Arkle Challenge Trophy in great style. Remittance Man is the winner. and Kalani is second.
They start to turn in, and they just got one more fence to jump, and it's Sam Mann and Clare and Davis. Could it be another Irish 1-2? They've kicked 4 clear of Cametroff as they hurdle down to the final fence to strike Jackie Clare and Davis. White cap the far side, Sam Mann. They're coming down towards the final fence. How do they jump it? Clare and Davis jumps it just a bit up, but Sam Mann isn't giving up, and there's a wall of sound as they hit them up to run in, coming up towards the line. Clare and Davis nearest to us. Sam Mann the far side, but neither horse will be beaten, but it's Clare and Davis just proving the stronger, and a desperate struggle for the line. It's Clare and Davis who wins from
It's Arkle on the stand side for Ireland and Millhouse for England on the far side. And this is it with Arkle just taking the lead as they come to the last fence. It's going to be Arkle if he jumps it. Arkle coming to the last now, and Arkle a length clear of Millhouse. He's over and clear. Millhouse is trying to challenge him again, but it's Arkle on the stand side. Millhouse over on the far side, coming up towards the line, and Arkle is holding him. Arkle going away now from Millhouse. This is the champion. This is the best we've seen for a long time. Arkle